This is regarding enrollment for people to enter new enrollments or look for people that have already been on the program. I will begin with that you need to get a user ID number or a password, and you would have to get this from Michelle before you could go on and enter anything into the system. Her email address is Michelle, M-I-C-H-E-L-L-E .Heffelfinger, H-E-F-F-E-L-F-I-N-G-E-R @nebraska.gov, and that's to request your ID or password to get into the MEDIT system. Otherwise, you can't get in. And make sure the client has filled out an enrollment form, and the FOBT given to the client has the same number on it as the application. Say, for instance, LAN 16-15 needs to be on the application and on the FOBT kit. Another thing I want to stress is clients need to be a Nebraska resident. They have to be between the ages of 50 and 74 years of age. They cannot have any insurance of any type and income guidelines. You have to follow the Nebraska income guidelines. And they can be a male or a female, but they have to be 50 to 74. They have to be a permanent resident of the United States. Show their permanent resident card would be sufficient before you give them the FOBT kit. And the reason for that is if the client comes in with a positive FOBT and we need to have all these marked yes. If they come out of another state or another country and you have given them an FOBT kit and they're only 27, I can't help them with the Nebraska colon cancer program to give them a colonoscopy. They'll either have to go back to their own state or you're going to have to figure out somehow to help them to get a colonoscopy. They have to meet all these guidelines before my program, which is the Nebraska colon, can help them pay for a colonoscopy. And all applications need to be entered before the FOBT results are to be entered. Otherwise, the lab has no place to put the results. So you need to go to your site and pick up all the applications weekly and enter them right away. And that is, so that the lab will know where to go and find a client to enter the stuff. Otherwise, we keep getting the FOBT results, and they don't do us any good because there is no one in there in the system by that name because you've not entered their applications. So let's go ahead and log on. And remember, you need to get your log on password from Michelle. And I'll log in as myself. And you're going to use your username and your CD program code, and then you hit sign in, and then you'll need your password. And if you mess up 3 times on your password, it'll lock you out. You'll have to give Michelle a call to let her know that you're no longer in the system. You can get in the system. And you have several ways for searching for your client. You can do the date of birth, the last name, the first name, the zip code. Sometimes people have different names in the system, so make sure that you're looking for the date of birth for this client. They may have a different last name. So when we are looking for a client that's already in the system, we'll put their date of birth in. If they don't have a date of birth, someone may have put in 1/1/1980 if this is an older client, and the birth date doesn't coincide, and you happen to have a birth date. I'll talk to you about how you put it into notes. But let's go in for the last name and see if we can't find somebody by the last name. And I am going to put myself in, and so I would be considered a new client. So I'm going to only have one cycle, and that is what you're going to be entering today. But say, for instance, you find your client, and the client is in the system, so you're going to go ahead and add another cycle to that client. You're not going to enter the client as a new client again. Once they're in the system, they stay that same, they use the same MEDIT number and everything. With me coming in as a new client, I'll have a new number, a new MEDIT number. So let me go ahead and just enter my last name and see if I'm in the system. And as you can see, you can't find me up in here. So what I'm going to do is go ahead and go over here to client information, add new client, CC, and I'm going to enter myself. And so you're going to have to do the last name first, and then your first name, and then your middle initial. And if they don't have a maiden name, that's fine. And if they don't have a Social Security number, just go ahead and put in the zeros. And mark them either if they're female or male. And then, of course, you have to put in the date of birth because that's necessary to be able to trace somebody. And their address. The second address part here is, say, for instance, they have a post office box number. That's where you would put that. If they had an address over here and they had an apartment number, then you would just add the apartment number here. This address number 2 is for their post office box. And then, of course, you add their zip code. And it will bring up your state, your county, your city, and your equivalent county. And then you need to put in a phone number, so in case you do need to reach them, to let them know the results of their FOBT kit. And the alternate contact is if, say, for instance, they have a friend or a spouse, and you would enter that information in there in case you couldn't get a hold of the client. You have it somewhere else that you can contact the person for. But I'm not going to put anybody in there, so I'm going to check that off. The date the client is enrolled is the date that they signed the application. So we're going to put in today's date, and your region will come up. I'm going to put LAN because that's the region I'm in. They're always active unless you know something different about them. If they're deceased, you will see there's a drop-down table. And as of today's date. Now this date enrolled, if this person comes back with a new application, say next year, you never change this date enrolled because that is the date they came into your program. This down here, as of, will change with their signature each year. So then how did they learn about, and you're always going to be sending them a correspondence, and how did they learn about the program? And your sites are on here. If you don't find your site on here, then you need to let Michelle know, and she'll put your site on there. But I'm just going to say doctor. And then we have the client's household income before taxes. If you don't know, just put the zeros in there. And income, you know, you can put that as unknown. And how many people are in the household, and I'll say 2. And it will calculate eligibility levels. And the medical release form is the date that they signed their application. And that will change each time also, because both of these, as of and the date signed, will be changed every time they give you a new application. If you don't know if they've had any insurance or anything, well, just put unknown. And then you always have to update. Anytime that you do anything with this client and you change anything on the screen, you have to update. Or this is add client, but it would be an update also if you have a current client in your system. Also, I want to go back to the notes. Say, for instance, this client has added something to her program here, like maybe a change of address. Her date of birth is different than what she did the first time. So what you're going to do is do notes. And this is to let you know that something has changed on this client and you have changed it. So you're going to put in the date that you're doing it, and you're going to put the name of the client and their date of birth, and you're going to say the last name is being changed to adding fields. And then make sure you put your initials and your title on there, and then go up there and then go ahead and change it. Or if it's the date of birth and it is wrong, it's really 1953, then you would make a note here in your notes about it. Or if you finally get a change of address and you need to change their address, you put the old address here in the notes and saying you're changing it to the new. So then you go ahead and put that information up here in your notes, and then you change the address. So since I did that, I'm going to add client. And as you can see, I did not mark anything here, and you will see that it will please verify all fields that are red, marked red. And so that makes you go back in there and look. So Hispanic is no, and it is white. So then we go ahead and add the client again, and it was success because I answered the question that was in red. So there you go. And as you see, it says update over here. So that would be anything that you change in here. Say if you change the address and you make that note, then you change the address and you have to go down here and update. So let's go over here to the CRC date. And you're going to go into health evaluation. And it's going to be a new screening. So it's going to be a new CRC cycle. We won't put any, what we'll put here is the date that you signed your application. And date received, you don't really need to do that. But if you have a doctor and a place that, you know, the client is going to, and let me look for the, so, and then it brings up that address. I look for the physician that goes for, and this is regarding the physician's lab. This is where you would prefer to send your lab to, is physician's lab, and they do all of our physician's lab. So you can see where I put in the doctor's name, their address came up, and the doctor's name is there. And the preferred health system is where your FOBT goes to. And it says, and it should be on the application, have you ever been screened for colon cancer? And the client will answer. And the recommendation of the test that you're going to give them is the FOBT, which you've already done. And you can say an indication for testing is screening. And the date given was 3/2 of 2016. Now you're going to put the number of the FOBT kit in here, and that coincides with the application and the FOBT that you're handing out to the client. And there you are with that, as you can see. And so then we're going to have to add this, because if we don't add, hit the add button, it's going to not save it for us. So let's go back over here and look into the initial testing screen. And it took all your information and put this in here. And when the lab gets the results, they're going to put that information in here for you. They're going to send the result to the clinic, and 5 days later they're going to send the results to the client. If you don't have a clinic, make sure you put your health department in here, because then they will contact you to let you know. If you need to send out a second FOBT kit to this client, make sure you change the FOBT number on it so that it matches whatever you're sending out to the client. And this is where the FOBT is given. And then you have to hit down at the bottom, send another FOBT kit out to the client. If you get in here and you find that your client is in here, then make sure you don't start a new cycle, a new program for her again. Always use the one that you have in here for your health department, and you're just going to change her cycle. And so when you look at this, this is the one that I entered just now, but if she needs a new cycle, we're going to go back up to the CRC, and we're going to add a new screening. And this is like for 2017. So when you add a new screening, we're going to proceed anyway. You're going to start all over with the new application that you just received for the client. So it's a continuous cycle, and this will start a new cycle for her, and it's for the same client. If you don't find the client in your system, then you start her as or him as a new client. But if it's in the system and you find the name, you just use that demographic situation and go on with them. So if you have any questions, please give me a call. I'm Shelley at 402-471-4487. Thank you.